Hello everyone, this is MC Deck Discussions and I'm Obby Small, and today we have another deck discussion. This is another Wasp deck, so this is the fifth aspect. So since I've covered, a number of things about these types of decks with Wasp that have in common, this has in common a lot of things with the other decks. So I'm going to talk about just what's special about this deck, because I do consider this deck to be special. I really enjoyed playing this deck. It's called Float Like a Butterfly, Sting Like 1,000 Wasps. And this is an upside the head deck. So let's go ahead and talk about what makes up this deck. So first of all, this deck has a lot of, just like the other decks, it does have a lot of card draw. But this one has additional card draw on top of what I've had in previous decks. So I'm going to mention some of those cards real quickly. So we have Clear the Area, right? 1-cost event, removes 2 threat. It's a thwart, removes 2 threat from a scheme. If this removes the last threat from that scheme, draw 1 card. So I have 3 copies of that. I also have Face the Past. I've included that in the other decks too, but this has the ability to draw 3 cards and bring out your Nemesis minion. I also have One Way or the Other. One Way or Another. Only 1 copy of this, but it's a mental resource card. And as we've talked about in the other videos, Wasp has the ability to bring mental resource cards back into the deck with her ability. I didn't usually have to do this because this has so much card draw. This card would just come up again when I wanted it. So I didn't really have to do it, but I may have done it once in the 9 games that I played here. This was play tested, amongst 4 different villains, so you can see those villains there. And then additional card draw that we had also could occur from Skilled Investigator, so a 0-cost upgrade, and play under any player's control, 1 per player. After a side scheme is defeated, it's a hero response. After a side scheme is defeated, exhaust Skilled Investigator and draw 1 card. So that gives us some more card draw as well. And because recently we had Nick Fury Sr. added because of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion. So I have Nick Fury Sr. in here too, and was usually used, 4-cost ally, 2 attack, 2 thwart, and I usually used him to draw 2 cards. So if you also consider the usual methods of card draw that I've been using for these decks, then this card has a phenomenal amount of card draw, which is really awesome. So you can get to the cards that you want to get to. So let's go ahead and talk about the other parts that actually make this special. So there are 2 things about that. And since I feel like I'm likely to forget this one, I'm going to mention it first. So first of all, we have Agent Coulson in here, who is a 3-cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 attack, shield and spy traits. Has this response: after Agent Coulson enters play, search your deck and discard pile for a preparation card and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. So I've included 2 preparation cards in this deck. So we have Counterintelligence, so a 2-cost upgrade, preparation and skill trait, has this interrupt, and there's max 1 per player. It has this interrupt: when any amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme, discard Counterintelligence, prevent 3 of that threat. So in addition to the fact that this deck has a fair amount of, the capability of confusing the villain and the minions in this case. If we just looking at the usual Professor X that I've included in this deck, we can confuse the villain. So the Counterintelligence also helps to make sure the main scheme doesn't trigger for us. And then we have an additional one, preparation card, Practice Plan. This was a new one with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Max 1 per player has this response: after you discard a preparation card you control, discard Practice Plan, return that card to your hand from your discard pile. So I only have 1 copy of each. So the purpose of Practice Plan was to bring Counterintelligence back to your hand and either use it as a resource or put it back into play again and help to keep the main scheme into play. That does mean periodically, not a lot, but periodically, I did put Agent Coulson back into the deck. He has a mental resource. So again, using Wasp's alter ego ability, the GIRL action, shuffle up to 2 printed cost, 2 cards with a printed mental resource back from your discard pile back into your deck. So every once in a while I did actually use that so that he could then be able to bring back Counterintelligence or Practice Plan if Counterintelligence was already in play. Okay. All right, so let's get to the other part of this that is different than the other decks that I played. And that is Upside the Head. So Upside the Head is a 1-cost card. Notice it also has a mental resource. So we can see a mental resource here. So this can be shuffled back into the deck, and periodically I would start, especially as the game progressed, I would start putting this back into the deck. And it has this hero response. After your hero makes a basic attack and damages an enemy, confuse that enemy. If that enemy is already confused, stun it instead. And very often, that would be the case. So perhaps I already, since I have 3 copies of Upside the Head, perhaps I had already used it on the villain and stayed in hero side, so the villain had not yet tried to scheme. So he's already confused and he would be stunned. Or what actually happened just as frequently is I would have 2 copies of Upside the Head in my hand, and I would attack the villain and do damage to the villain, because you do have to do a basic attack and damage the enemy. Then I would confuse and stun the villain. However, sometimes what I would do, and actually very frequently, if there was a minion out there, or maybe 2 minions, and in one case 3 minions, I would confuse the villain and those minions. So, or in one case, actually, it was the villain happened to already be confused, and I confused all of the minions, and I wouldn't have been able to confuse the villain because the minions, or at least one of the minions, had guard. So how is it that I could confuse multiples at the same time? So one of these, this cool ability of Wasp, actually the giant hero form doesn't show up here, so we need to go to giant hero form. So let's go check that out. All right, so if we check out Wasp's giant hero form, she has, and she has 2 thwart and 2 attack in this form. And threat she removes or damage she removes. So notice there's a star here, right? So we have a star on both the thwart and the attack. So the threat she removes on a thwart, or the damage she removes on a basic attack, both of them on the basics, she can divide amongst enemies as she chooses. So that being the case, if she attacks somebody, she has 2 attack to begin with. She could split that up and deal damage to multiple enemies. Let's go back and look at that card that we were checking out a little bit ago. So if we look at the wording on this again, after your hero makes a basic attack and damages an enemy, confuse that enemy. So with that 2 damage being split up, that could be a couple of enemies. So sometimes that would be, say, a minion and the villain. However, she naturally has a way to increase that damage at times. And plus, we built into this deck an extra way to do that. So let's talk about that extra way real quickly. So in this deck is included the player side scheme, specialized training. So if we take a look at this card, right? So this player side scheme costs 1. You have to remove 5 threat from it per player. And then it has victory 0. So it'll be removed from the game afterwards. And when it's defeated, each player who does not control a specialized upgrade chooses one set-aside specialization upgrade and puts it into play under their control. So every single time I chose the same specialization upgrade, which should be listed right over here. And that is right here. So I would use, with the specialized training, I would pick Combat Specialist, right? So Combat Specialist comes into play then, and as an upgrade, and your hero gets +1 ATK, so that would increase it to an attack of 3. And after your hero performs a basic attack, exhaust this card, draw 1 card, so you'd also get to draw a card. But importantly here, now there's 3 attack, which could be split amongst 3 different enemies, and therefore, when we use Upside the Head, now we can confuse 3 enemies at a time. And but just as importantly as that, we have another card right in her kit that's an event. So if Wasp starts out in her tiny hero form, she can then play Rapid Growth. So Rapid Growth is a one cost event. Has this hero interrupt when you use one of your basic powers, thwart, attack, or defense. And in this case, I'm really thinking about the attack, the ATK. Change to your giant hero form and get +2 to that power. So at a minimum, because she already has 2 ATK on her giant hero side, she is now attacking for 4 and can split that damage amongst 4 enemies. So I did in fact have that happen. Well, actually one of them had guard, so I had 3 minions out. And so this was in the case of when I was playing against Red Skull, had 3 minions out, and I was able to hit damage all 3 of them at once, confuse all of them. The villain had already been confused before, so that gave me the ability to go down to the alter ego side safely and not have any of them thwart. And then, of course, get a bigger hand size, plus be able to play some of my other cards like Moon Girl. Then the very next turn, I was able to eliminate all 3 of those minions. Then the very next turn, the Red Skull had 4 minions out, but because I had gotten so much card draw before and I got a bunch more card draw again, I was able to eliminate all 4 of those minions as well. So it was very cool, and especially once you take into account some of her her own attack event cards, right? She has 3 here with Pinpoint Strike, which are kind of expensive, but she also has her Wasp Sting. So in that case, I had a couple of those, plus some card draw to be able to eliminate all of those villains. In addition, this was kind of cool too when playing against Red Skull. Red Skull has an attachment that gives him Retaliate, but he has 2 copies of it. So I actually played his entire time. He was in, let's see, this was when I was playing on Standard, but I also played him in Expert as usual, right? Because when I'm refining my deck, I play in both Standard and Expert. Was able to beat, all these villains in that. Only lost once against Magneto in Expert, but then beat him right afterwards in Expert, so won all those games. And so when I was playing against Red Skull in Standard, he had both of those attachments out, so he had Retaliate too, but I never got retaliated on until the final turn. So it didn't matter because I kept using cards like Pinpoint Strike, right? So, and when Wasp was in Tiny Hero form, Pinpoint Strike deals 7 damage to an enemy, but if you're in Tiny Hero form, you deal 1 additional damage to the enemy and gain overkill. So I was able to defeat the minion, do the extra damage to Red Skull without having the Retaliate trigger. And on top of that, when you defeat a minion in the Tiny Hero form, she has this small but mighty response, right? This ability, the response after Wasp or an event you play defeats a minion or side scheme, deal 1 damage to the villain. So I would defeat a minion that way, get the overkill damage, and because I defeated the minion, I do an extra point of damage to Red Skull on top of that. Plus, Red Skull, every single round, is bringing out another side scheme. So I would also defeat side schemes and plink off some more damage. So I was able to get that damage down relatively quickly and then have a final turn where I did another, I just needed another 12 points of damage that I could do a combination of Wasp attacking for herself, plus using one of her Pinpoint Strikes, plus a couple of allies, and I think it was just maybe 1 more ally, no, 2 more allies there, and finish him off. So it was a very cool battle, and it was able to demonstrate the power of this deck. And I didn't even mention this yet, right? It also has Float Like a Butterfly. So when those enemies are confused, and if I had Float Like a Butterfly out, which I would usually wait to bring this out, if it were convenient, I would bring it out early, but I'd usually wait to bring this out till a little bit later. And then once this is under play, right, you can have max of 1 per player, has the interrupt when a character you control attacks a confused enemy, increase the amount of damage that attack deals to that enemy by 1, which of course is once again very cool with Wasp in Giant Hero form, because you can do multiple damage to multiple enemies and increase that damage by 1 on multiple enemies. So just really had a ton of fun with this deck. And like I said, it has some of the other elements that I had mentioned before about previous decks. And if you've seen those other ones, or you can go see one of those other decks if you wanted to see some of those other elements at play. I just wanted to talk about the things that were special about this particular deck. So since that is my 5th deck now with Wasp, so that's all 5 aspects, that does mean I'm going to put a ranking of Wasp in the various aspects, at least with the decks that I have created for her. So which ones are my favorites? So, and as I mentioned in a previous video, I am going to allow ties this time. I didn't like that when I did that with Magneto, where I did not allow ties, because I actually felt like it was misleading, interestingly enough. So I will allow ties. And I think I do have a tie I'm thinking of right now. So in any case, please like and subscribe if you appreciate this kind of content. Also, please make comments. I love having conversations with other people there. And everybody have a good one.